Are you a high-achieving dental entrepreneur frustrated by the gap between where you are and where you want to go? Are you tired of advisors whose advice keeps you merely surviving when you should be thriving? I'm Tim McNeely, and I believe you deserve to build true wealth so you can take even better care of the people you love, the causes you care about, and leave your dent in the universe. Welcome to the Dental Wealth Nation Show, where we hand you the keys to unlock true wealth quicker and with less effort than you ever thought. You may find that running a dental practice sometimes doesn't go as smooth as what you hoped for. You may have found that the dental practice that you've built, the one that you dreamed about when you were in dental school, is just a little more chaotic than the one you had imagined years ago. Well, that's why I'm so excited to have you here today, is because by the time we finish, you're going to know how to simplify your practice and really build a career in dentistry that you actually love. One that feels calm, one that feels focused and fulfilling instead of chaotic and draining. You're going to have practical tools to help you respond with clarity instead of reacting in stress. Plus, at the end, we're going to share a mindset with you to really help you empower and create consistently great days for yourself, for your team, and for your patients. But most importantly of all, you are going to feel inspired to design a simple, elegant, and sustainable dental practice that gives you energy and not one that takes it away. And today I am so excited. We've got Dr. Mark Davis here. And why I'm so excited about Dr. Mark Davis is not only is Mark a neighbor here in Bakersfield and someone I know right down the street from my wife's office, but I'm really excited because Mark has an incredible career in dentistry. He's managed to own over 16 dental practices. He's worked for DSOs. He's finished a number of Ironman triathletes. He kite surfs and many other sports. And he has so much gas left in the tank and many years of experience to share with you to help you really move from chaos to being in control. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tim. What a wonderful intro.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. So excited to have you here today. And man, dentistry, it can be a little chaotic, can't it?
It sure can. I know after 37 years and number of practices, I know all the bumps and I have felt them all.
Yeah. So, how did you start really getting started in dentistry? For you, what was your genesis in getting into this?
My dad was a physician, an orthopedic surgeon, and I knew that was a pathway and it looked like a successful pathway, but I wasn't sure about the hours and the time that it was going to require to do that. So I looked at dentistry and I thought, oh, that might be a really good fit for me, really not knowing that much about dentistry. So I jumped in and here I am. I went to Loma Linda University, and actually I walked out of my sophomore year in dental school. I felt burnt out. I just needed a break. And I remember I was in an exam. I just folded my exam and went up to the dean's office and I said, I need a year off. Can I come back? And he said, yeah. And I left. So I've had, it's not been just all straight and narrow and great. I've had a few bumps and wasn't sure I was even going to come back into dental school when I left, but I did. And then when I was even done with dental school, when the first year, I was like, wow, this is not what I expected. And so I had to really look at myself and try to find a pathway that I thought would work. And I've experienced a lot of different things and I've made it interesting.
You certainly have, right? So I find that fascinating, right? Even as a sophomore in dental school, you were feeling some of this chaos, some of this
Oh, sure. Yes. When I got into dental school, I didn't understand the volume of studying and just the work that would need to be done. And so the freshman year took a toll on me. And by the time I got to my sophomore year, I just felt like the weight. I mean, I had gone right through college, right into dental school. I probably should have taken some kind of a gap year, but I didn't. But actually I did, because I took that year off in my middle of my dental school, not knowing I was going to come back. Coming back, I felt refreshed and ready to go and felt, energy to finish. And I did. And And when I got out, I'm like, wow, this is not really what I expected either. And so I've gone through a lot of, highs and lows of, this is good, this isn't what I want. I've been in solo practice. I'm not sure that's a good fit. I tried many different things as an associate just to learn some of the techniques and steps that would make dentistry easier for me. So I've just gone through this whole gamut. And then when I sold my solo practice in California, I moved to Washington State for 13 years. And I had multiple practices up there. I had 4, and they were larger practices with associates. And I had a great partner, and the light came on there, like, oh, this works. It gave me some time freedom. Um, and I didn't feel so confined in being in an office all the time. I just I built in freedoms with that, even though it was stressful. But that's where I learned to, really decipher what was important and what's not, and what I can take home or not take home, or I can, sweep it up from my desk. And so I started learning those techniques back in Washington. And then from Washington, I moved back to California, and I thought, oh, I've done this in Washington. It went so well, I'll be able to redo it in California. And I did rebuild it. I did a number of practices in California, probably 6 or 7, but it wasn't as easy.
Well, right, and you talk about that, right? Things getting more complex in life. As I get older, I often find myself thinking, man, things were a lot simpler when I was younger. I'm married to a dentist. My father-in-law was a dentist. I guess, his dad was a lab technician. So, I've seen the complexity in dentistry continue to increase as time goes on. And what I love about you is you talk a lot about simplifying dentistry. And so when you talk about simplifying dentistry, what does that actually look like in real practice day to day?
Simplifying for me it came down to a couple of things. One was to respond versus react to things that happen just in a day. In a common day in a single practice, there's probably 10 changes that might occur. Your schedule may change. A patient gets added, a patient gets taken off, a treatment might get changed. I mean, even while you're doing a treatment, it might change from a crown to a root canal, or a root canal to an extraction. And there's so many different changes. And I wasn't given this gift, but I have learned to be able to, respond accordingly and thoughtfully through these changes, and not react and be upset and get all fired up. And it created just an environment for myself and my staff and my patients to feel that, it wasn't a stressful place to be. I've kept in contact with almost all of my own old employees through the years. So I think that spoke volumes of that I did it right and not burned a lot of, relationships. And I had a lot of partners too, and I'm in contact with all of them too, even though partnerships are very difficult. So I did learn to have this mindset of, a good day mindset, whatever it took to understand that there's going to be changes, and be thoughtful with what those are and not react to it, because that's what really can create the day to be stressful.
Interesting. So it sounds like really a lot of simplifying dentistry is being able to move from reactive to responding, right? Responding appropriately to what happens instead of this reactionary mindset.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's easy to react and be like upset at your assistant for something that's silly, or or a patient, or a procedural change, or the instrument wasn't on the tray. There's so many things that can happen, and it's so easy to get, I think, triggered by that. And I just felt, and it's not that at some point I probably was a little bit, but I learned very early that it just wasn't that important. But what was important was for me to be able to go home and not bring my work home, and take care of and be with the people that I love, my family, and do the things that I really loved, and not just carry this burden of being upset or angry, or not responding appropriately to things that changed during a day.
Hmm. Well, right. And you talk about all the things that can change during the day, right? Up to 10 things or more sometimes in a day
Yeah.
can change. And a lot of the doctors I know, a lot of dentists I work with, they tend to be a little bit of a perfectionist. And so do you think that gets in the way of really kind of letting go and being able to flex and move through a day that changes? And what role does letting go of perfection really play into building a simple dental practice?
Well, the old saying is perfection is the enemy of good, right?
Hmm.
And I've learned that good works quite well. And perfection, I think it has a toll on a lot of people, because if you're always striving for perfection, it's not attainable. There's a few times maybe you can feel like you have perfection, but I think once you've learned what good is and you know that you're serving your patients well, I think it's an easy pathway to follow where dentistry doesn't feel so burdensome. Um,
Hmm.
and
Interesting.
I'm not, it's not that I'm trying to compromise, but patients give you only a certain amount of time. They don't give you all day. They give you, a lot of times you get an hour for whatever you're doing. And you can even look in their mouth and you probably can tell what kind of energy they gave back to the dentist if they have really bad dentistry. It's like,
Hmm.
probably the dentists were doing the best they could for with the time that patient allowed. And
Oh,
if you
that's
see really
interesting.
good dentistry, maybe they're a bit more patient. But I perfection is, we all strive for it, but I think honestly it really is, carries a lot of weight. And I
Hmm.
think once you can learn to not feel like you have to have that for every procedure, I think you have lifted a big weight off your shoulders, that you can practice more freely and make better decisions and do better dentistry.
Wow, amazing! And that was so interesting what you just mentioned with kind of looking at the dentistry in someone's mouth, and if it's better dentistry, maybe that patient is a little more patient, and if it's not so good, maybe it's because they're rushing people. So what an interesting insight! I love that. Right, that's something I don't think most of our listeners would ever even think to pick up on. Right, that's something you learn through experience of years of doing this. And
Yeah, and I see that every day. Like, wow, they have a lot of bad dentistry in there, and it's not that they're a bad person, but that's what they maybe can tolerate, and that's what was allowed, and that was the level of perfection that they got. And
wow.
it's interesting to see that day to day.
Hmm. Yeah. So we've got a number of people tuning in. If you've got questions for Mark, go ahead and post them below. We'll answer those live for you. So, Mark, what would you tell to a dentist who's listening to this? One who feels like they're lost in a little bit of that chaos. One who says, "Man, my practice is anything but simple." What's a small change that they can make this week today to really start creating a more calm routine, bringing more clarity into their daily routine, and really creating a practice that they love even more? What are some of those small changes they can start making right now today?
I think going back to having a good day mindset is very important.
Hmm.
And I tell myself all the time, I go, the priority for every day, it's the patient. That's what is paying the bills. That's who our clients are. That's who we serve. And I think the focus always has to go that they're the primary. The second is take care of your staff. If you have a happy staff, you're going to have a good day. You have an unhappy staff, you're going to have a rough day. And so those are the two. I mean, those are one and two for me to take care of and
Hmm.
think about and make sure that I'm on time. I'm using good time management. I'm getting them out on their breaks and they're getting home on time. And the last person I worry about is myself. I can quickly go into the mirror and have a conversation with that person really quickly and say, hey, maybe it wasn't um, the best day, but the only one that knows is myself.
Hmm.
And I just I'm really careful of not wearing my feelings on my sleeve and being protective of the patient and the staff every day.
Wow. And we're going to talk more about that good day framework at the end. We're going to save that for the end of the show. I believe
Okay.
that's so powerful what you do. And I really want to dive deep into that because I believe that makes a major impact, the way you
Mm-hmm.
think, the way you structure your day. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
really looking forward to diving deeper into that good day
Okay.
framework at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And you just started to touch on time management and efficiency. Well, what kind of role does time management really play in keeping your patients, your staff, and yes, even yourself happy?
I think time management is so critical every day. If you are running behind chronically and having, your hygienists are waiting for exams and patients are getting backlogged and you just can't get caught up, that creates a very stressful day. And, one day leads into a week, and a week leads into a month, and a month leads into a year, and a year leads into a career of really being, dissatisfied and unhappy. So time management is very important. One of the things I teach with my consulting are dental gears. And I have 1 through 5. First gear is being very slow and methodical, and fifth gear, you can work as fast as you can. And
Hmm.
for an example, first gear would be giving an injection, a shot, listening to a patient that's got a concern. And fifth gear is when you know the patient's really numb and they're ready to go, and you're not going to zing them because you haven't paid attention of getting them really numb. Then fifth gear, you can work as fast as you want.
Hmm.
And
Wow.
they're not there for, an hour facial. They're there for whatever you can, how you, efficiently get this done and let them get on there with their day.
Hmm.
So it's different steps for different things. And those gears are helpful with time management throughout the day of, even with an exam, you all of a sudden you have 3 patients in the chair and you have, hey, doctor, you have a new patient exam. And you're like, oh boy, that can take some time, but you've got to be able to go in there and make, quick decisions, understand who your patient is, and that you have patients in the other chair. You're not going to be able to spend the time that you maybe normally would, but then you focus in on the problem, and then you'll say, let's make another appointment, have you come back, and we'll rediscuss all the things that you need. So you're going to have to make decisions on the fly so you can keep with your time management really
Hmm.
steady every day. And if you let that get behind, it's just a mess.
Yeah. Well, right. And we can talk about this. And I think intellectually we can get this. And it sounds pretty simple. It's like, yeah, manage your time. Make sure you run on schedule. Make sure you're getting in and out properly.
Mm-hmm.
But oftentimes in actuality, it's not so easy to do what we intellectually know we should do. And so what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see dentists make when it comes to managing their time?
I think they don't know that. I don't think they have a good read on the patient right away, what their
Hmm.
wants and needs are. And if a patient leans into something and they're really interested in what you have to say, then then you start slowing down a little bit and really listen and try to give them good advice. And, if they're like, hey, I want out of here, I'm done, they don't have any need for what you have to say, then it's like, okay, let's just make this really quick and easy, and, not to ever be rude or make or dismissive, but, know your audience. And I think that really helps to be able to make decisions quickly. I mean, some people, they don't need a lot of coddling and a lot of talking, and then I don't do it.
Hmm.
And if other patients, I try to read what they need very quickly. And I run a busy practice. I run, I got 2, 3, 4 chairs going all the time with hygiene, and I don't run behind. But I know where I can pick my spaces to get other things done or get my exams done. And I know when I can shorten up things, or I mean, once in a while you get into a thing like, oh, wow, that took me a lot longer than I thought it would. But it's really knowing what your skill set is, and knowing the patient, I think, really well.
Well,
And being able to understand what that patient needs, right then and there, and not try to, you know, it's not a one size shoe fits everybody that you have to, give them an hour exam and for like a new patient exam. So I think you just have to understand what your audience is.
It's so fascinating, right? When I ask you about, what are the mistakes you see with managing your time? It wasn't a time blocking response. It wasn't do this. It actually came back to some of your underlying skills that you may have as a doctor. And you said reading your patients important, being able to understand them and figure out what they want. And so it sounds like even within time management, it may be just identifying, what skills you have that work really well and which skills you need to improve. And so I
Yeah.
find that fascinating that time management may not actually be a time management problem. It may be a skills issue or a training issue.
I don't even do morning huddles. I never look at my schedule
Oh,
ahead of time. I just don't ponder it. I don't look at it the next day. I come in the morning and sometimes I don't even look at the whole day. I just like, oh, that's what I have. This is what we'll do. And
hmm.
I have an idea of what the day will create and what the demands of it. But I'm pretty good at with the flow and knowing where I have to be and what I need to do to get that day done pretty easy. And I'll take on any emergency patient. And I try to do something for everyone that walks in.
Hmm.
It's really, I mean, I offer something for that patient. I don't just like, oh, unless I mean, there's an occasion where you're like, there's no way I just I don't have a chair. I don't have the assistant or whatever. You'll have to make an accommodation. But I would say high 90% time I'm doing something for that emergency patient.
Well, and when we come right back here after a break, I want to dive into your consulting work. And specifically, I want to start talking about what are the things that you can really help and look at assessing a dentist who wants to gain control of their schedule. So we're going to dive into that real quickly as soon as we get
Okay.
back from our break.
You're listening to the Dental Wealth Nation Show, where we give you the keys to building true wealth. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with the friends you care about. Ready to level up? Grab a copy of my #1 best-selling book, Dental Wealth Nation, and unlock the secrets of building true wealth today.
We are here talking with Dr. Mark Davis and really diving into how to build a practice that you love, how to shift from chaos into control. We're talking about how to, really build that practice that serves you, that isn't running your life, but you're running that practice. And so, Mark, we've been talking about just time management and efficiency. And I'm curious, in your consulting work, as you're working with dentists out there, what are some of the first things that you assess when you help a dentist gain control of their schedule? And I just lost your video and your audio. Think you're coming back here. Hey, welcome back.
Sorry, I lost
That's okay.
audio there.
No problem. So, hey, I was just asking, right? We've been talking so much about time management, about efficiencies, and building that practice that you love. And so, Mark, in your consulting work, what are some of the first things that you help a dentist assess to really help them gain control of their schedule again?
I would like to know what the flow of the day goes, what their relationship with their staff is, um, just understanding where a day leads them and where they get really hung up. Are they getting their staff out on time? Are they able to have their lunches on time and their breaks? And finding out where the hiccups are, and then working with them in order to be able to shorten some of those processes for them. I'm not there to tell them how to necessarily run their practice or what management system they should use or software or even procedural wise, or how they should clinically do things. But I can help them find different gears to get them to be able to be more time efficient with everything that they're doing. I do have tips for clinically helping the doctor, but that has to come with them asking, hey, I need help with this procedure. What do you think that would help me
Hmm.
with that? I mean, like with endo, I'm really good at endo. I like doing endo. I have done it all my life, all my career. And I'm really careful with time management with that. I mean, I'm a PPO practice, so it's not that I'm getting UCR fees. And so I've learned to be able to do a lot of my endo in one setting in a
Hmm.
period of time and not fuss around and bring them back and bring them back. And it seemed like you'd go broke that way.
Yeah. So, what advice would you have to a dentist who feels like they are in a practice where they're constantly putting out fires, they're struggling to connect with their team, and they do have a lot of chaos? How do you get right? What advice do you give to that doctor who really feels like they're in the midst of chaos?
Well, I think I would also ask them how their personal life is, in a sense of
Mm,
how do they take care of themselves? Is that a priority? And I think that's been another big part of my longevity secret, is that I've taken really good care of myself health wise, and nutrition and exercise. And like you said, I've done a number of Ironman triathlons, and in some of my busiest times of working with my most practices, I've pulled those off. So again, that
mm,
comes in with time management. I would just need to find out what the flow is and where their hang up is, and are they getting their patient numb, and what are the holdups for them in a day that seems to get them behind or lag behind, and then really focus in on working on creating systems of like my gear system, or just learning how to read a patient better. Those would be some of the skill sets that I think I could help a lot of.
mm. Well, right, and I
Yeah.
love that you bring that fitness piece in there, right? The Ironmans, because right, training for one of those, it's not just something you decide you're going to do, right? It takes some effort to really
Hmm.
build that training schedule in, and
Hmm.
you're running a practice, you're training for an Ironman, you're holding a family together, right? How do you really put that all together? Because I know I struggle with this, right? Just trying to really make sure that time is being spent wisely.
Well, I believe I've spent a lot of time on trying to take care of myself, and that's why I'm still at 64 able to practice and feel healthy and confident. And so it's all a part of that package that I believe I'm still able, like I said, to be productive. Um, when I had so many practices, I've owned 16 over my career, and I've had upwards of 6 at a time. I really learned to what was important and what is not important. And I mean, there's no way you can take on all of the stress of all those practices all the time. You would just bury yourself. So I learned to be able to, really look at it from a bird's eye view, and be able to say, this is not, I have to give this to someone else to do, and not take it always on myself. And not that you have to own a bunch of practices to figure that out, because there's plenty to do with one practice, but I think you learn to understand what's important and what's not, and start, shredding some of the things that are just not, terribly important, and you have to come home and you burden your family with that.
Hmm.
So that, saying that, and then also taking care of myself, that was a priority. I mean, I made it a huge priority to do that and stay healthy and feel healthy, so I could be my best every day at work.
Wow. Wow. So powerful. Right. And I think that's a lesson many people, miss is they think I'll get to this later. But the truth is later is often too late, right? If you ignore your health, by
I
the
know.
time you're having health problems, it's often too late to really start doing that. So
You
I
know, oh, go ahead.
oh no, please.
No, at 64, I'm. It's hard to believe that I'm 64. Life has gone by so fast, and it just it goes by. I mean, 10 years like that for me, and I shudder to think that another 10 years I'm 74. But so I think the time, you're right. The time is now. You don't have time to, like, well, I'm going to see if I can get this figured out, and what you don't want to have to keep dealing with are health issues that set you behind, or create some imbalance at work as well. So that's why it was really important to take care of myself the best that I could,
Mhm.
and I continue to do that. I'm so lucky. I feel very fortunate. many of the things that I really loved doing when I was in my 30s, I'm still able to do all those things.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Earlier you were also talking about, one bad day can make a bad week, and walk us through that again, because I want to start talking about your good day framework, because the
Yeah.
reverse is also true, isn't it?
True. Like I said, a bad day leads to a bad week, and a bad week leads to, on and on and on. And then all of a sudden you've had a bad career, or you've just had a bad run. And I think you just get weighted down with, bad days. But bad days create just a bad environment at work, and your staff gets unhappy, and you're going to have a lot of turnover. So I think tending to the core, and that's yourself, of having that mindset, it fixes a lot of the issues that surround that. um, I just, it's really unsettling to have unhappy staff and complaining that you're not staying on time, and it just creates a day that feels just so weighted.
Hmm.
And I had learned through a lot of hard knocks. I wasn't given this gift to be able to perform that. It took time and to figure that out. But I did realize early on that a happy staff creates, a happy day,
Hmm.
and or a day that makes sense. And because if you have one day that gets away, your staff is okay, but you have multiple days like that, they're going to start giving up, and they're going to get discouraged, and that discouragement shows, in so many different ways, and it starts really being heavy on the practice.
Well, right. I love that a good day can lead to a good week, and take us through where a good week might lead you.
Well, a good week leads you to a good career, and you're feeling energized, and you don't have the weight, and you're not bringing this heaviness to home. So I always had this pact. I'm not bringing my wife was a physician, and so it was, she didn't bring her work to home, and I didn't bring mine either. So it was just a neutral zone, and it really worked. So we just, not that we couldn't discuss good things, or, sometimes it wasn't always just, we couldn't discuss it, but we really made a point of just not bringing all the heaviness to work, to home every day. And it just made a better environment. And here I am. I'm still married after 35 years, and it worked.
Wow.
So I think it's important. That's what I'm still practicing. I'm part-time, and I enjoy it. It's not that I don't enjoy it, but I still have the same mentality of, going to work and doing the best I can to manage that day, to make sure that everyone goes away not feeling too beat up. And I think that has translated to the amount of practices I've had, the relationships that I've kept with my staff over the years. And here I am, and feeling that I've had a very satisfying career, even though back many years ago, I wasn't sure I was the right fit for being a dentist.
Wow. Right. Incredible to go from sophomore year and taking a year off to really loving what you do, and creating that practice that's been able to provide freedom, and doing it in a way where you haven't destroyed relationships, because a lot of people make it through their career and they've burnt a lot of bridges. And so what role did all that play in helping you create this good day framework? Because I want to end on this. I think this is so important, the good day framework. Take us through this.
Can you ask me that again? Exactly.
Yeah, tell us about the good day framework that you have, and really what role your experiences have played in helping to create that good day framework. Because I want to dive into this, because I believe it's so important to have that framework for creating good days in your practice.
I think it's, it starts with when I walk through that door. When I walk into my office, or whether I walk out, I can change. I just feel the change, and I know that when I walk in for the start of the day, I'm on, and it starts right off the bat of not looking for problems, but always trying to help the day go better. I mean, I still, even to this day, I mean, I'll make it temporary. I'll help clean a room. If that can make the day go better and simpler for my staff and it's more seamless for the patient, why not? Doesn't mean that's your job and you have to do it for every day. But if that's what is needed, then I say do it. I'm not going to go sit in my office and let the day just kind of get away and everyone's frustrated because rooms are dirty and things that can't be done. Go in and help. Be as helpful as you can. And it's not going to happen every day or every week, but certainly when it's needed, why not? And that's how sort of my mindset of when I say a good day, I'll do whatever it takes to create that.
Wow.
And not bend from that, because once you bend from that and you have bad days, one bad day really sucks. You go home and you're not feeling good, and then what's the energy you bring in the next day? That energy, or can you switch that to a new frame of mind? And it just builds upon each other. Day after day, if you just have good days, the staff, they get energized by that, and they'll give you way more than you think. But if you start beating them up, you'll get way less.
Wow. Oh, such wisdom. I love that, Mark. Thank you for sharing that framework and that mindset with us. And so for those of us who are listening and we want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Well, my website is called dentalsimplified.com, and you can drop me an email and I'll get back with you and we can discuss if you have any issues or problems or concerns that you think that I can help you with and see you through. I'm happy to do that. I'll do a complimentary call.
Okay, excellent. No, that would be amazing. So I would encourage you, if you're listening to this, if you're feeling a little burnt out, if you're feeling like your practice is a little chaotic, reach out and get some help. It can make all the difference in the world for you. And so, any closing thoughts before we sign off here, Mark?
Well, I appreciate you having me on your show and be able to discuss what I'm coaching. I think it's just, dentistry's hard. And I think if one can learn to start making it more simple and flow, I think that you can create a better environment for you, a better you, and a longer, more fulfilling career. And now that I've been doing it as long as I have, I can say that. And these are the things that created that. And I've talked to so many dentists that, they haven't done that and they're just burnt out and they've left unsatisfied. And I feel like I'm going to leave as I want to and feel like I did my best. And now, my consulting is I feel the need to share. And I think I have a lot of wisdom to share. And it's not that everybody has to take my same path, because not many people will. I've done it, I feel like, a little bit differently than most dentists, but I certainly have the experience to help dentists in a lot of different ways.
Well, hey, thank you for sharing so generously with us, Mark. I know I certainly have a better idea of how to build a simple practice. And it starts with just having a good day, right? What are the things that you can do to have a great day that leads to a great week, that leads to a great year? And if you do that, it's going to lead to a great career. And so thank you for sharing that. And I certainly have some more practical tools, and certainly feel inspired to work on building that simple and elegant and sustainable dental practice. Because if you do that, you're just going to have a much, much better life. And so thank you again for sharing so generously with us, Mark.
Thank you.
And we'll see you again here soon on the Dental Wealth Nation show.
That's a wrap on today's Dental Wealth Nation show. If you've loved today's insight, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and share the wealth with your dental friends. I'm Tim McNeely, and remember, your amazing life of significance is just one smart decision away. Keep keep thriving, and catch you next time on the Dental Wealth Nation Show.